Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain.
On today's edition of the Theatre Podcast, we have a special episode where I shall be interviewing Richard as he discusses his recent trip to the West End, covering 5 shows in 1 week. Richard, you must be mad, if not knackered.
Well, just a little bit. I never get tired. Hear my take on some of the current big and small productions, such as Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Bonnie and Clyde, Dear Evan Hansen, Cabaret, and finally Anne Juliet.
So, with all that said, I think it's time to
set the scene.
Right, moving on, we have 2 more here, and I think I'm going to save... Yes, I'll save that one for last. Here we have Bonnie and Clyde, which is another musical.
It's almost like I like the musicals.
Oh my goodness, Jason Haig Ellery. He's from Big Finish, Doctor Who. Okay. So we have book by Evan Menchel, lyrics by Don Black, music by Frank Wildhorn. A load of people I don't know. Anyway, over to you. So, what are your thoughts on this staging of Bonnie and Clyde?
Okay.
Set the scene.
The scene setting. Bonnie and Clyde, it's based on history and an infamous duo. The description on the website is 2 small kids from the middle of nowhere became the biggest folk heroes in all America. They craved adventure and each other, and their names are Bonnie and Clyde.
Well, you've sold it to me already.
Ah, there you go, see. So, this production was at the Arts Theatre in London, near Leicester Square.
Right.
It is a very small theatre, and I think it's used for premiering new productions. They test out a lot of productions here. They all do limited runs.
Was this play suitable for a small...
Yes, I think it was.
You don't think it... Would it look a bit lost on a bigger stage? Because we've seen some big stages with small shows in there. So
I think it would in its initial layout. However, if they put it on a bigger stage, they could probably stage it bigger. Because what you were presented with when you walked into the Arts Theatre was a stage with, all I can say is warehouse type doors with broken glass in the windows. But actually, when you started looking closer, there was gunshots and gun holes. There was
I'm guessing there's no car in this.
There is a car.
I was going to say that would have been great if they had a car.
There's half a car.
Half a car.
Yeah.
Maybe if they had a bigger stage, they'd have a full car.
Well, exactly, and this is what I'm saying. If you did it full stage, you could have had a full car.
There you go.
And it could have moved.
Out,
it could have moved as well because it didn't move in this production. The car didn't, so it didn't. It wasn't a cut and short. Drive it along the road. But yeah, so what you were presented with was a very 20s looking rundown warehouse. And there was a record player radio on stage right at the front, and it was playing 1920s style music. It was just in the background, just to take you back to that era.
So no Britney Spears on this one?
No, there was definitely no Britney Spears on this one. Lighting wise, there was
bulbs,
sort of broken up pieces of concrete with lats and light coming through that to give you the impression that the warehouse was broken down and things like that. So it was almost like a garage warehouse sort of set when you walked in.
Where's the concrete that's broken there? Where are you looking? Oh, okay. So for the listening viewers, it's above.
Yeah, above the stage. So the light was leaking through those things, and there was bits of smoke coming through there to give you sort of the smog and the build up, really.
Okay.
As the production progressed, it was almost an empty stage production where everything, because it was a small stage, a lot of it happened more with the characters than it did the set.
So are we saying this is a clean stage production where it pops on, pops off?
And reliant on projections at the back as well.
Okay. So
because there was a big projection wall behind everything that was sort of helping.
Right, so we've got another Hanson thingy.
Yeah, very much, yeah. But all the projections were very distorted and very muted, really. They were all there, but it was almost like a watercolour, or it was there in the background, but it wasn't done.
Not taking focus.
It wasn't taking focus from the actual production itself. So you were basically told the story of how Bonnie and Clyde came to be, from childhood right the way through to their inevitable end. And it was done in a musical style. The songs I thought were good.
It's been done in as a film a few times, hasn't it?
Yes.
Was it? Am I right in thinking that it was Reese? Is it Witherspoons? Weatherspoons. Bridget Jones, was she in the film?
I think she was. Yeah, a long time ago that was, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, not that old. No. Seemed like yesterday when I saw the trailer or something. Unless I'm getting them mixed up in that sort of Chicago-esque era. Should have fitted the part anyway.
It was definitely a history piece where it was talking about her life and their lives and how they became to be.
What was the direction like? I don't know, it seems a bit odd just to say it like that, but, you know, it had a small cast.
It was very much focused on the two families almost, as in Bonnie and her family and Clyde and his family. And then brothers, and the fact that they got locked up, the brothers did at certain points, and Clyde, Bonnie's sort of eventual sort of move into falling in love with him and helping him escape jail and stuff like that. There was a lot of moments like that where it was centered around Bonnie and Clyde, and
that helps with the play being called Bonnie and Clyde,
and I think it worked. I think they could have gone off on tangents and explored too much about other side characters. When
is this a new play?
It's a new musical, yeah. So it's been written as a new piece, and I do think it worked really well as a whole piece. And I felt the cast really worked well together, and there was a lot of comedy moments because it wasn't just about the music. This was almost like a play with music. So, and I'd say it was sort of in the realms of the style of like Peaky Blinders and that sort of style where it was gritty. It felt gritty, but it was very in a Bible Belt production of an American
Deep Republican
state. Very much churchgoers, because the church scenes were really useful where the pastor was really strong, and but then it dipped between that and going against God almost, and going off and doing misdemeanors, and then becoming Bonnie and Clyde where they were, but then the family being torn between taking handouts from Bonnie and Clyde, because it was almost in the Depression eras, so it was, you know, there was a lot of money became almost worthless, you know, so I think that.
But in terms of like the direction, was there any like stylistic, directorial, not influences, but did they do anything sort of that was extremely difficult or different, or was there a moment that stood out where actually that was a really good directorial piece there?
There was, what I will say is there's the first scene where Clyde actually murders a policeman in one of the first sort of heists he does, where he ends up shooting somebody.
So is that the
like
inciting
blood
incident?
on his hand? That's like the moment where they do.
Return.
I felt that they directed that really well, because the songs they used, and one of the main songs that they sort of have a reprise in the second half is "Raise a Little Hell," and that's directed in such a way where that's where Clyde starts seeing red, gets blood on his hands, and then almost becomes cold to killing. And even though there's retrospective looks back at his childhood, now it's real. I just felt it directed it really well, where it went from somebody who was almost messing about, being that child, being that person that's playing at being naughty boy, now becomes a man and starts becoming a horrible person, where actually is reveling in the fact that he can control this with a gun in his hand and those sort of things. So I felt that then changed the production, and you sort of drew you into it. Yeah, it drew you into that. And what they did some clever things where the projections were mapped almost to when he was at the back wall, when the projections were changing, there was blood on his hands, and then the blood left marks on the wall, and there was those sort of things where that was done really well to sort of see that change in him, to then become this almost bloodthirsty person that didn't care then if he killed somebody to make money. It was, and I thought they went there. They didn't hold back and make it a happy, jolly Bonnie and Clyde the musical. It definitely wasn't that. It was definitely.
No, I
gritty.
suppose when we saw Animal Farm, for instance, and then it's like the butchering of the animals and stuff, that was very. They actually went there, and it was quite brutal. And we ourselves, we actually felt it emotionally.
Yes, exactly.
How it was done. So was this in a similar vein?
Same sort of vein. They didn't hold back, and then they explored what would happen when the other people found out that had happened. Because killing a policeman was quite severe, and it's taking over power, or by doing that, it's such a
people looked up to
the
police back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowadays, the police are pretty much useless, and people have no fear for authority or anything like that anymore. That's all gone.
It was just
unfortunately
it was in a scary moment, and I think that sort of summed it up really. Yes, there was, because I actually saw the production, because I was.
You actually saw the production. Thank God, because I don't know why we're reviewing a play that neither of us has seen. Can you imagine that? We're going to score this a 1. Have you seen it? No. We just don't like it.
I actually saw the production where Clyde was played by the understudy, and you wouldn't have known, because I was expecting to see Jordan Luke Cage, who's actually normally in the production, who I've seen in and Juliet, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So I knew his integrity and I knew his performance style, but I actually saw Barney Wilkinson in this, and he was just as intense, just as in power, just as poignant, and just as believable, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good. Talk to us about the props and the costume, with this being a period piece.
Okay, so props and costume.
Was it all set in 1920s, or was there a bit of a mash-up like in Anne Juliet?
No, this was very much entrenched in the 1920s. It was very much, as I said before, it was Bible Belt America, where it was very, very stuck in its period, but it was very stylized 20s, where there was a definite change between what they were wearing in the first half, say Bonnie and Clyde themselves, when they became more glamorous and more trying to be the gang sort of led territory, or the sort of, there was such a change into like suits and powerful dressing to show that they were now earning money, and so they did it really well. But down the costume, I suppose it was down to things like belts, suspenders. It was done with braces. There was a lot of things that were about then, and it felt right stuck in the era, really.
Did you see this at the same time you went to the Kit Kat Club and saw Cabaret? I mean,
I saur this the night before
the night before. Yeah. So, you could have been stuck on the 1920s, couldn't you?
Really? It's almost like I'm living in the era. Quite happy to be in the era.
But judging them both, I'm quite intrigued as to how you think, like, you would have been travel back in time to that same era. How one's set in New York, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Kit Kat Club.
Berlin.
Berlin. Sorry, and this is like
America.
So you got European, and then you got America.
With seeing Cabaret without projections and very much reliant on the performance, that felt more 20s because of the projections in Bonnie and Clyde. It almost modernised it a little bit. When actually
you got modern technology, whereas Cabaret is and also it was immersive theatre.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. But that's the only thing that was different, I'd say, is the projections are great, but if you're trying to depict a certain time period and era, they sort of makes it more a contemporary piece rather than a full 1920s piece.
Yeah.
But I liked it as it was. However, there's just a difference between the two in a way. But prop wise, it was very much empty stage. Move things on. There was the scene where it was there was one scene at a petrol station. They just had a petrol pump brought on, and that was it.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything else. It was just enough to give that sort of view.
I mean, with it being such a small stage, aren't you lucky it didn't do a Red Ellen and start bringing that up a load of other things?
Well, exactly.
Blocking the stage.
But it was simple things like the church scene.
Yeah.
They literally brought up a backlit cross that was there, and it was enough to give you the fact that you're in a church. But it still kept within the staging of it.
That's all it needs, really.
And it wasn't
symbolism as to where you are.
And because the pastor had the view of it sort of.
You keep saying pasta as if this is some kind of like spaghetti thing.
Yeah, no, pasta.
Pastor.
Pastor. Well, But I think if you sort of looked at references from old Bonnie and Clyde photos, they did very well in picking out the same look and the same feel of, you know, when you actually look at the production, it was very faithful to the sepia photos of the original piece. So I think that had a lot to be said for it, really. Everything looked lived in. Everything looked like, you know, it was just a bit rough around the edges, and I like that.
Now, what about the technical aspect of it?
I thought it was really good. Lighting-wise, I think...
Yeah, you pointed out the projection and stuff.
Yeah.
But like the sound effects.
Yeah, sound effects were really good. I mean, there's a lot of gunshots happening. There was a lot. There was some.
Were they the right gunshots?
They were the right gunshots. They were loud enough, and they made you jump. So because
were they the right gunshots for the right guns of the era of the period?
There was there were
detailed.
There was like obviously the scene where they shot the policeman that reverberated and bounced and became bigger and was part of a sound effect that then created, because it was the first person he'd killed. There was a lot more to that than. But yeah, I thought the blend worked really well, and the music worked really well. Everything, it was just done. It was confident again. You know, there was a lot of work in it. So.
Was there any faux pas? Did anything go wrong here?
No, not again.
Oh, so we've got a fourth play with everything going perfect.
Yeah, this time nothing. And for saying you got an understudy with the main character.
Yeah,
that can cause problems, but there was nothing.
But then again, we saw Sheila's Island.
There was one moment, but it wasn't technical. Okay. It was just one piece of costume got stuck round the bed when Bonnie and Clyde were having a bit of fun on the bed. It just got wrapped around one of the handles or something. But they got out of that because it was the scene where they undress anyway. So it didn't really. It just looked natural.
Oh, so
you could tell that something got stuck, but they unstuck it themselves. But you knew that probably wasn't meant to happen, but it didn't really detract from the scene it was in.
Okay, so scores on the doors for this one then, Richard. 1 to 10.
I give this an 8.
Another 8.
Another 8. So it was really good. The songs were good. And I think it's one that if I watched again, because the songs then will be more familiar, I would watch it again because I feel that the songs would have been more familiar, because it's very difficult when you watch a new musical and you've never heard any of the songs and the new writing, that you've got to be very open-minded, and then that doesn't mean you'd necessarily enjoy the songs because you don't always listen to them as much.
I must admit, I would probably, this is the kind of play that I probably would go and see. You know, it's a history. I know about Bonnie and Clyde, so I'd be very much like I'd really want to come and see this. So yeah, I think I would. So what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck, tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be?
I'll give it a standing ovation.
Oh!
I did give it a standing ovation. Yeah. So, it was worthy, and I thought it was done really well.
So there we are. That's our discussion of A Week in the West End, where Richard Platt takes on 5 of the top shows. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing A Week in the West End, where Richard Platt takes on 5 of the top shows.
And the new musical, Identical.
That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.